I wrote a column on Off the Hook Sports and why I would have a garden of heroes, whatever you want to call it, and you would have more statues up of former Vols who had success at Tennessee. Obviously, General Neyland statue is up now, so go ahead and fill in the message boards again. Mash that like button. Who would you have a statue of? Caleb Calhoun, I will begin with you. Today's tough question brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
So I'm trying to spread the wealth. So I'm going to ignore those people whose numbers are retired. Heads up. I'm just letting people know that. Their numbers are already retired. They're already honored. I got 3. I think Al Wilson should be there. Al Wilson was the heart and soul and the best player on what we all agree is the most beloved, greatest team in Tennessee football history. And so you got to have somebody from there. I would go Al Wilson. I would then have Eric Berry. I know the on-field success wasn't the same, but I just, the level of impact he had, it can't be understated how big Eric Berry was. And so I've got Eric Berry too. My third is going to be a throwback to history, Gene McKeever. For those who don't know, Gene McKeever was the first superstar in Tennessee football history. He ran for 5 touchdowns against South Carolina in 1929. And most college football historians have all agreed that if the Heisman existed when he played, he would have easily been a Heisman winner. Even with the hatred against Tennessee and the Heisman, they couldn't have ignored Gene McKeever. So those are my 3.
General Neyland said that he was the best player he ever coached, best player he ever saw. So we've got a Butch Jones statue. I think that's in jest a vote. I don't think that's going to happen. And let's start with this, Caleb. Who are the players, for those that don't know, that have their numbers retired? We're talking about the World War II honorary members who passed away. We're talking about Reggie White, Peyton Manning, and who am I forgetting all of a sudden?
Doug Atkins.
Doug Atkins. Oh, I can't forget Doug Atkins. Okay, so the first one, excuse me, that I would say, Travis says Peyton T, Travis Henry, Jamal Lewis, Schuler, Majors. Man, we got a lot now. The first that I would have would be Phillip Fulmer. And a lot of people are surprised when I say that because he and I had somewhat of a contentious relationship at times at Tennessee. You're just going to when there's an administration that's going to make a coaching change and you know it and the coach doesn't know it and you're kind of caught in the middle. But I like Phillip Fulmer on a personal level. Do I think he can be self-serving at times? Absolutely. Do I think he was a good for the university? Absolutely. And he won a national championship. So I would have a statue of him first and foremost. That would be the first one that I would get up there. So your thoughts on the message board, and Caleb, your thoughts of a statue of Phillip Fulmer. I think that there's a lot of reason to do that and some reason not to. What do you think?
Yeah, I can get on board with Fulmer. I think one of the big reasons is you're right. He won a national championship. And look, Alabama they've had a lot of coaches win national championships, but all those coaches get statues that have done it. I mean, if Gene Stallings can get a statue, Phillip Fulmer can, because I think we all agree that Phil Fulmer goes down as a greater coach in history than Gene Stallings in SEC lore. Don't we agree on that?
Well, yes, he does have a statue, and I didn't know that until I just Googled it. He apparently has 2 statues. I know he had a special needs son. He's the former coach at Alabama, for those of you that don't know. So he's got one in Tuscaloosa and another one that is where John Mark Stallings Field is with his special needs son. He's done a lot to get back to special needs. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Phillip Fulmer is every bit the coach of Gene Stallings.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think winning a national championship is enough to earn you a statue at the university. Now, then there becomes the debate about retroactive national championships. So technically Tennessee claims 1967 as a title season. Do they put a statue of Doug Dickey out for that? I don't know, but it's undisputed with 1998.
You got a couple of situations where great coaches kind of tarnished their legacy. Doug Dickey with the Florida tie going to Florida, and then Phillip Fulmer coming back, hiring Jeremy Pruitt. That sits wrong with a lot of people, but Matt says he agrees. Joe says he's tarnished his legacy, which is different. He would have agreed 5 or so years ago. But I'm still down with Phillip Fulmer getting a statue, and I'm down with some other guys getting a statue as well. And I don't want to be flippant about this, but I remember there used to be Peyton Manning and T. Martin statues. They were wax and people would joke and say, does the T. Martin want to have money falling out of his pockets because of the issue in 1999 where there was an alleged booster? But I thought you came up with a great one with McKeever. I could certainly see that, and I cited that in my column. Caleb Drew, who will join us a little bit later for a big, huge recruiting update, said Peyton Manning and T. Martin. I'm down with that. My three, though, that I went with, and Doug Atkins is one that I could certainly be talked into, but I look at and I remember going, excuse me, going to see an Orioles game, and they actually have statues of several players and Babe Ruth, who was from Baltimore. And it's a cool way to walk into the facility. And I would have some other guys on there too, but I think the first that I would have would be Phillip Fulmer. He's second in wins at UT. And then the next I would have would be Al Wilson. Those to me are the pretty simple ones. And then if you wanted to go old school McKeever, I could certainly do that as well. But I do like the Eric Berry one. The on-field success, to me wasn't there, but he always answered the question because they didn't have a bona fide quarterback to answer questions. So Travis said, I did say a garden, so I'm thinking 20 statues. Yeah, if you start opening up to 20 or so, I think we include all those guys. But I think it's a super cool thing to do because I would want prospects to see with Eric Berry, hey, you walk in, you do the right things, you play hard. Things may not go well for you on the field, but you're still going to be remembered as one of the all-time greats. And he's a college football Hall of Famer, was just inducted this year. And he would have been, I should say, in the NFL Hall of Fame had it not be for the illnesses, which included cancer and ACL and Achilles. That's a lot. Yes, I think that's a way to remind players, especially from Georgia, hint, 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 that may be touring the stadium during their campus tours, that he was a very special player, even though he didn't win a couple of national championships.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. You've talked me in though. So we both agree on Al Wilson. We both agree Al Wilson. That was one we had. I think you talked me into Phillip Fulmer. I think I don't know who I would drop between Barry and McKeever, but I know that Phil Fulmer and Al Wilson are in my top two also now. Because you kind of like, you're right. Whatever you guys feel about Fulmer as the athletic director, I get it. But Fulmer, the coach, even if I think personally, and I don't know what you think, Dave, I think personally a lot of his success had to do with just inheriting a university that was so far ahead of the curve in recruiting and things like that. And he benefited from that to a large degree. He still won the national championship. So there's no way you could take that away from him. And he was National Coach of the Year that year. I don't think deserved. I think that was just media writers not doing their homework on how loaded Tennessee was talent-wise heading into 1998. And so they gave themselves cover by giving him Coach of the Year. But I think Fulmer, you've talked me in with Fulmer. So I am there with Fulmer and Al Wilson.
He did inherit a program. He was incredibly fortunate in the 98 season, but it's still a national title. And what would Tennessee? I mean, Tennessee would build a statue of Josh Heupel tomorrow if he won a national championship. And that's something that I think gets lost sometimes. In UT Sports Information Department, they send out a ton of tweets that they've broken all these offensive records. But I do think it kind of forgets the past a little bit. Smoky Mountain Red said, just buy Fulmer a statue to put in his own yard after the AD failure. He just showed his true colors. I do not hate him, but he showed his cards. Fair. Derek Barnett should get a statue according to Vols time, as we'll bring Caleb back in. Derek Barnett getting a statue, that to me would be clearly the second level. I love him as a player, but that's the second level, isn't it, Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, Derek Barnett has an all-time record, but if you're going to start giving statues to people with all-time career records, then yeah, you got to go Derek Barnett, Travis Henry, Peyton Manning, Joey Kent, like every all-time statistical record. Like, come on, these guys you can't give them all statues.
Now, I wouldn't have Reggie White on there, and the reason is I thought he had one great year at Tennessee. And that was to prepare for the NFL, essentially. I didn't think that he was great throughout his career. I'd have Eric Berry above Reggie White, which sounds crazy for the younger fans out there. But Smoky Mountain Red said Ed also won a natty at LSU. Does he get one there? I would argue that what Ed Orgeron did as a head coach was much worse. I don't know about much worse. How would you compare the way LSU fans should view Ed Orgeron and Phillip Fulmer? By the way, hit the like button, thumbs up for us. We appreciate that.
I mean, Ed Orgeron won you a national championship. I don't think you put him over Nick Saban, but I think I'd give a statue to Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, and Nick Saban, and yes, it would be like the rule with Orgeron is the statue has to be him shirtless.
Nice. But Orgeron and a screaming face, but Orgeron really went off the rails.
He did, but okay, not in the same scandalous way, but Gene Stallings went off the rails at Alabama, and I think was the reason for Alabama falling behind. He was the catalyst for the program falling so far behind in the late 90s. He started the recruiting scandals that Alabama struggled with.
That's
and
true.
He's got a statue.
But he was so gentlemanly about it. And Travis says that was the best LSU team of all time, though. That was one of the best SEC or college football.
Maybe the best team of all time.
Yeah.
Just best. I think that 2019 LSU team would beat the 01 Miami team. I do. Quarterback play. Joe Burrow or Ken Dorsey?
I'll take Joe Burrow.
And they're still very talented everywhere else. So